The great hall of the Galactic Council was quiet, too quiet. Ambassador Zenth of the Kalari Federation stood at the center of the room, his blue skin pale with fear. His hands shook as he held the datapad containing the news that would change. Everything dot around him. Representatives from dozens of alien species sat in their floating chairs. Some had 4 arms, others had tentacles, and a few looked like walking trees. But they all had one thing in common. They were all staring at Zenth with worry in their eyes. "My friends," Zenth began, his voice barely above a whisper, "I come before you today not as a proud ambassador, but as a broken man begging for help." The translation devices hummed as his words were converted into hundreds of different languages. The Kalari had always been traders, not fighters. They sold goods across the galaxy and stayed out of wars. Everyone knew them as peaceful people who just wanted to make honest deals. 3 months ago, the Vorthan Empire attacked our outer colonies, Zenth continued. We thought it was a mistake, a small border dispute that could be solved with talks. We were wrong. He pressed a button on his datapad. The air above him filled with images that made several aliens look away. Burning cities, ships falling from the sky, Kalari families running for their lives. The Vorthans don't want our planets. They don't want our resources. They want us gone, completely gone. They kill everyone. Men, women, children. They burn our cities and poison our water. They have destroyed 47 of our worlds. A tall alien with green skin and 6 eyes stood up. This was Speaker Rex of the Altarian Republic, the leader of the Galactic Council. Ambassador Zenth, surely you can negotiate with them. The Vorthans are a military people, but they follow the rules of war. Zenth's laugh was bitter and cold. Rules of war? Speaker Rex, let me show you their rules. New images appeared in the air. Rex stepped back in shock. Even the battle-hardened Drakmor representatives made sounds of disgust. The images showed Vorthan soldiers doing things that violated every rule of civilized warfare. They don't take prisoners, Zenth said. They don't spare hospitals or schools. They don't allow surrender. When they take a world, they kill everything that moves. Then they move to the next world and do it again. The hall erupted in angry voices. Aliens spoke in their own languages, but the translation devices made it clear they were all saying the same thing. This was wrong. This was evil. But what could they do? "Where are your fleets?" asked a voice from the back. It belonged to General Crix of the Zephyrian Alliance, a warrior race that had fought in many battles. "Gone," Zenth replied. "We had 300 ships when this started. Now we have less than 50, and most of those are cargo vessels with small guns bolted on. Our best pilots are dead. Our best ships are space dust." "What about your allies?" Rex asked. "The Kalari Federation has trade agreements with hundreds of worlds." "Trade agreements are not military alliances," Zenth said sadly. "Our friends will sell us weapons, but they won't send soldiers. They're too afraid of the Vorthans." The hall fell silent again. Everyone knew the truth that no one wanted to say out loud. The Vorthan Empire was too strong. Their fleet had over 1,000. Ships, each one bigger and more powerful than anything the Kalari had ever built. Their soldiers were bred for war, enhanced with cybernetics and combat drugs. They had conquered 12 different species in the last 50 years. "How many worlds do you have left?" Rex asked quietly. 17, Zenth whispered. "Maybe 15. By the time I get back home. The Vorthans are moving fast. They want to finish us before the galaxy can react." "And how long do you think you can hold out?" 2 months. Maybe 3 if we're lucky." The silence stretched on. Representatives looked at their datapads, at the floor, at anything except Zenth's desperate face. Finally, An alien that looked like a giant insect spoke up. "What exactly are you asking us to do, Ambassador?" Zenth straightened his shoulders. "I'm asking you to help us fight. I'm asking you to send ships and soldiers to defend what's left of my people. I'm asking you to stop the Vorthans before they decide to attack someone else." "The Vorthan fleet numbers over 1,000 ships," said General Crix. "Even if we combined all our fleets, we might have 600 ships, and most of those are patrol boats and cargo haulers. We can't fight them, so we should just let them kill us all?" Zenth's voice rose in anger. "We should just watch while they burn our children and destroy our worlds?" "That's not what I'm saying," Crix replied. "I'm saying we need to be realistic. The Vorthans are the strongest military force in the galaxy. No one can stand against them in a straight fight." "Someone has to try," Zenth said. "Someone has to make them stop." It was then that a new voice spoke up from the back of the hall. It was quiet but clear, and it made everyone turn to look. "The Kalari Federation has formally requested military assistance under Article 12 of the Galactic Defense Charter. The Terran Commonwealth will answer this call." The speaker was a human female, young by galactic standards. Her name was Kate Phillips, and she was the junior ambassador from Earth. Most of the other representatives barely knew she existed. Humans were new to the galaxy, having joined the Council only 15 years ago. They controlled maybe 50 systems, most of them barely habitable rocks that other species couldn't colonize. Ripple of what sounded like laughter went through the hall. Not mean laughter, but the kind you make when someone tells a joke that's not quite funny. "Ambassador Phillips," Speaker Rex said gently, "we appreciate your species' desire to help, but this is beyond your capabilities. The Kalari Federation has nearly 1,000 worlds. Your Commonwealth has what, 50 systems?" 57, Phillips corrected. "And you're right, we're still a small power by galactic standards. But we have something the Vorthans have never faced before." "And what's that?" asked General Crix. Phillips smiled, and something about that smile made the aliens around her suddenly uncomfortable. It was the smile of a predator, though none of them quite understood why they felt that way. "Experience," she said simply. "The Vorthans have conquered civilizations that lived in peace for thousands of years. They've beaten species that barely remembered how to fight. They've never conquered a death world. They've never fought a species that has been at war with their own planet for 1,000,000 years." "Death world?" Rex asked. "I thought that was just a classification error." "Class 12 Death world," Phillips confirmed. "Everything on Earth tries to kill us. The weather, the animals, the plants, the bacteria, even the sunlight. We didn't evolve in a garden paradise like most species. We evolved in hell, and we learned to fight back." She looked around the room at the worried faces staring back at her. "The Vorthans think they're warriors because they've conquered peaceful traders and scientists. They've never fought humans. They've never fought a species that sees violence not as a tool of politics, but as an art form refined through geological ages of survival." "You're talking about 50 systems against 1,000-ship fleet," Rex protested. "I'm talking about humans against aliens who have never faced real predators," Phillips replied. "But don't worry, Speaker Rex. We're not asking for your permission. We're just informing you of our decision." The hall erupted in voices again, but this time they were different. Some aliens were arguing, others were asking questions, and a few were making calls to their home governments. But Ambassador Zenth was staring at the human with something he hadn't felt in months. Hope. "How many ships can you send?" he asked. Phillips checked her data pad. "The first expeditionary fleet can be ready in 72 hours. 47 ships, 20,000 Marines." 47 ships against 1,000, General Crix muttered. "You're all going to die." Phillips looked at him with that same predator smile. "General, you're thinking like someone who's never been in a real fight." The Vorthans have numbers and technology, but they don't have what we have. What do you have? Rex asked. Anger, Phillips said simply. Pure, focused, human anger. The Vorthans made the mistake of picking on someone weaker than them. Now they're about to learn why that's a bad idea when humans are involved. She stood up and walked toward the exit. Ambassador Zenth, our fleet will meet your survivors at the Nexus Point. We'll coordinate from there. Ambassador Phillips. Vrex called after her. What makes you think 47 ships can do what entire fleets cannot? Phillips paused at the door and looked back. Because, Speaker Vrex, the Vorthans are about to learn the difference between conquest and survival. They fight to expand their empire. We fight to protect our pack. And there's nothing more dangerous in the universe than a human protecting something they care about. She left the hall, and the silence that followed was different from before. It wasn't the silence of defeat. It was the silence of anticipation. Somewhere in the galaxy, the most dangerous predator species known to exist was about to go to war, and the Vorthans had no idea what was coming for them. Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching dozens of human warships form up around him. The U's Defiance was not the biggest ship in the fleet, but it was the most feared. Its hull was covered in scars from 100 battles, and its weapons had never failed to find their targets. Admiral, all ships are reporting ready for departure, said Commander Lisa Park from her station. She was young for her rank, but Morrison had learned to trust her judgment. In the human fleet, experience mattered more than age. Morrison nodded and looked at the tactical display. 47 ships floated in space around Earth's primary military station. To most galactic observers, it would look like a small fleet. But Morrison knew better. Each ship in his fleet was worth 10 of any other species' vessels. Sir, we're getting the final reports from the Marine commanders, reported Lieutenant Commander Ryan Cooper. All 20,000 ground troops are aboard and ready. They're not happy about the long journey, but they are ready to fight. Good, Morrison said. Have you briefed them on what we know about Vorthan combat tactics? Yes, sir. The Marines are. Excited to test their theories about Vorthan close combat abilities. Morrison smiled grimly. Human Marines had a reputation throughout the galaxy, though most aliens didn't really understand why. They thought it was just because humans were aggressive. They were wrong. Human Marines were feared because they had been trained to fight in conditions that would kill most alien soldiers before the battle even started. Navigation, set course for the Kaleri system of Threx Prime, Morrison ordered. Intelligence reports say the Vorthans are using it as a staging area for their final push. Course laid in, sir, came the reply. Morrison walked to the center of the bridge and looked out at his fleet. Each ship represented thousands of hours of combat experience. The crews had fought pirates in the asteroid belts, slavers in the outer systems, and hostile aliens in the unexplored regions. They had learned to fight not just to win, but to make sure their enemies never came back. Admiral, interrupted Cooper, we're receiving a priority message from Admiral Chon's Second Fleet. They've finished cleaning up the Vega sector and want to join us. Morrison raised an eyebrow. The Vega pirates are all gone? Every last one. Sir, Admiral Chon reports no survivors among the pirate fleets, and all the slave camps have been liberated. Tell Chon he can join us at Threx Prime. The more ships we have, the better. Morrison turned to his communications officer. Open a channel to all ships in the fleet. Channel open, sir. Morrison cleared his throat. All hands, this is Admiral. Morrison, in 30 minutes, we will jump to hyperspace to begin our mission to assist the Kalari Federation. I want everyone to understand what we're walking into. He paused, looking at the faces of his bridge crew. They were all focused, all ready. The Vorthan Empire has been conquering worlds for centuries. They have better technology than us. They have more ships than us. They have been fighting wars since before Earth discovered electricity. By every measure that matters to other species, we should lose this fight. The bridge was silent except for the hum of the ship's engines. But they've never fought humans. Before, Morrison continued, they've never fought a species that evolved on a world trying to kill them every single day. They've never fought soldiers who see a deadly situation and think this looks like fun. They've conquered civilized species who fight according to rules. We don't fight according to rules. We fight to win. He walked to the viewport and looked out at Earth, hanging in space below them. The blue and green planet looked peaceful from this distance, but Morrison knew better. Down there, in the oceans and jungles and deserts, life was locked in constant battle. Every creature that survived on Earth had learned to be dangerous. The Vorthans think they're warriors, Morrison said. They're wrong. They're just bullies who pick on people weaker than them. Today, they're going to learn what real warriors look like. He turned back to his crew. I won't lie to you. This is going to be a hard fight. The Vorthans have ships we've never seen before and weapons we've never faced. Some of us might not make it home. But I promise you this. When we're done, the Vorthans will never again attack innocent people. They'll be too busy trying to forget what we're about to do to them. Morrison nodded to his communications officer, who closed the channel. Then he turned to his navigation officer. All ships, prepare for hyperspace jump. Sir, said Commander Park, are you sure about this? The intelligence reports say the Vorthans have over 800 ships at Threx Prime. Even with Admiral Chun's fleet, we'll be outnumbered 20-1. Morrison looked at her with the same expression he had worn in a dozen battles. Commander, do you know what the difference is between us and every other species in the galaxy? No, sir. Every other species in the galaxy evolved on worlds that were safe. Worlds where the biggest threat was finding enough food or avoiding the occasional predator. They developed civilization because they had time to think and plan and build. Morrison gestured toward the viewport. We evolved on a world that was actively trying to kill us. Every day, for millions of years. We didn't develop civilization in spite of the dangers. We developed it because of them. We learned to work together because it was the only way to survive. He walked back to his command chair. The Vorthans think they're dangerous because they have big ships and powerful weapons. But danger isn't about having the biggest gun. It's about being willing to use whatever you have to protect. What matters to you? And what matters to us, sir? Asked Cooper, right now. The Kalari Federation. They asked for our help, and we said yes. That makes them part of our pack. And humans don't let anyone hurt their pack. Morrison sat down in his chair. Execute hyperspace. Jump. The stars outside the viewport stretched into lines of light, and the fleet vanished into hyperspace. Behind them, Earth continued its slow rotation, looking as peaceful as ever. But appearances were deceiving. The most dangerous predator species in the galaxy had just gone to war, and the universe was about to learn why Earth was classified as a Class 12 Death World dot in the ship's marine quarters. 20,000 human soldiers checked their weapons and armor. They had trained for this moment their entire lives, though they had never expected to fight aliens from another star system. It didn't matter. An enemy was an enemy, and they had been taught to win in the ship's engine rooms, human engineers. Monitored systems that would have killed most alien crews just from the background radiation. They had been raised on a world where radiation was just another hazard to deal with, like hurricanes or earthquakes or poisonous snakes in the ships. Medical bays, human doctors prepared for casualties. They had trained in conditions that would have horrified galactic medical standards, learning to operate while under fire, without power, in toxic atmospheres, and with injuries that would have been instantly fatal for most species. The first human expeditionary fleet was heading to war, and every member of the crew was ready for whatever they might face. They were humans. They were from Earth, and they were about to show the galaxy what a real death world looked like when it got angry. The journey to Threx Prime would take 3 days. The Vorthons had 3 days to enjoy their victory over the Kalari. After that, they would learn the hard way that there were some species in the galaxy that you simply did not mess with. The age of human warfare was about to begin, and the Vorthon Empire had no idea what was coming for them. In the cold vacuum of space 47. Ships carrying the deadliest military force in the galaxy moved toward their destination. Behind them, Earth's communication networks hummed with activity as the human government prepared for what might be the most important war in their species history. The Kalari had asked for help. The humans had answered. Now it was time to show the galaxy what that really meant. Fleet Commander Krex of the Vorthon Empire stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Destroyer of Worlds. Around him, 800 Vorthon warships floated in perfect formation above the burning remains of Threx Prime. The Kalari colony world had fallen in less than 6 hours, and now black smoke rose from its cities. "Commander, the final resistance pockets have been eliminated," reported his tactical officer. "All Kalari military installations are destroyed. Civilian casualties are estimated at 12 million. Krex nodded with satisfaction. "Excellent. Begin loading the troop transports. We move on the next target in 48 hours. The Vorthons had been fighting wars for over 1,000 years. They had conquered dozens of species and absorbed their worlds into the Empire. The Kalari were just the latest in a long line of civilizations that had fallen before Vorthon might." "Sir," interrupted his communications officer, "we're detecting hyperspace signatures at the edge of the system." Krex barely looked up from his tactical display. "More Kalari refugees trying to escape? Destroy them?" "Negative, sir. These are not Kalari ships. The hyperspace signatures are unusual." That got Krex's attention. In 1,000 years of warfare, the Vorthons had seen every type of ship design in the galaxy. Hyperspace technology was standard across all civilized species. There were only so many ways to bend space and time. "Show me," Krex ordered. The main display shifted to show the edge of the system. As Krex watched, 47 ships dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation. But these ships were wrong. Everything about them was wrong. "By the Emperor's blood," whispered his tactical officer. "What are those things?" Krex stared at the display in confusion. The ships were heavily armored, but not with energy shields like every civilized species used. Instead, they were covered in thick metal plating that looked primitive and crude. Their weapon systems were even stranger. Kinetic projectile weapons mixed with energy cannons and something that looked like ancient missile tubes. "Sir, I'm reading massive energy signatures from those ships," reported his sensor officer. "Their power output is off the charts. But the technology, it's like nothing in our databases." "Unknown vessels," Krex broadcast on all frequencies. "You are entering a Vorthon military operations zone. Identify yourselves immediately or be destroyed." The response came quickly. The largest of the strange ships transmitted on all frequencies, and the image that appeared on Krex's screen made him step back in shock. The creature on the screen was clearly alien, but unlike anything in the galactic records. It had forward-facing eyes like a predator, visible teeth that looked designed for tearing meat, and skin that was pale but somehow looked tough. It moved. It moved with the fluid grace of a natural hunter. "Vorthon vessels," the creature said in a voice that carried undertones of barely controlled violence. "This is Admiral Jake Morrison of the United Earth Space Forces. You are hereby ordered to cease all hostile actions against Kalari civilian targets and withdraw from Kalari space immediately." Krex found his voice. "Unknown vessel, you are interfering in a legitimate military operation." This system is now property of the Vorthan Empire. Withdraw immediately or be destroyed. The alien's expression didn't change, but something in its eyes made Krex's combat instincts scream warnings. Commander, you have 30 seconds to begin withdrawal procedures. This is your only warning. Krex laughed. 30 seconds? Do you know who you're talking to, alien? I command 800 of the most powerful warships in the galaxy. You have 47 primitive vessels that look like they were built in a scrapyard. The human tilted its head slightly. Commander, I'm going to give you some free advice. In about 20 seconds, you're going to order your fleet to attack us. In about 21 seconds, you're going to realize you made the worst mistake of your life. Krex's anger flared. No one spoke to a Vorthan commander like that. All ships, unknown hostiles, have entered the system. Formation Alpha 7, prepare to destroy these fools. The human ships opened fire. What happened next would be talked about in military academies across the galaxy for centuries. The human ships didn't fight like any civilized species. They fought like animals. The lead human vessel, Morrison's flagship, charged straight at the center of the Vorthan formation while firing every weapon it had. Kinetic projectiles moving at impossible speeds punched through Vorthan shields like they were made of paper. Energy beams that burned hotter than star cores melted armor plating in seconds. But it wasn't just the weapons that were terrifying. It was the way the humans used them. Vorthan ships fought in careful formations, following tactics that had been refined over centuries. The humans ignored all of that. They moved like a pack of wild animals, attacking from every direction at once. Sir, the unknown vessels are ignoring our shields, reported his tactical officer. Their weapons are punching right through our defenses. Impossible, Krex snapped. Vorthan shields are the best in the galaxy. Sir, 3 ships down in the first minute. They're using some kind of kinetic weapon that our shields can't stop. Krex watched in horror as human ships dove through his formation, their primitive-looking weapons tearing his advanced vessels apart. But the worst part was how they moved. Vorthan ships were careful, methodical, efficient. Human ships moved like they were alive, like they were hunting. Return fire, Krex ordered. All ships, concentrate fire on the lead vessel. 100 Vorthan. Warships turned their weapons on Morrison's flagship. Energy beams and plasma cannons lit up space as they poured fire into the human ship. The Defiance's armor glowed white-hot, but it kept fighting. Sir, direct hit on the enemy flagship, reported his weapons officer. Their armor is taking damage, but they're still operational. How is that possible? Krex demanded. No ship can survive that much firepower. Sir, their armor appears to be some kind of layered metal system. It's absorbing the energy and dispersing it across the hull. Krex stared at the display as the human flagship continued to fight, despite taking damage that should have destroyed it. These aliens built their ships like they expected to take punishment and keep fighting. Commander, his communications officer called out, we're receiving reports from across the fleet. The unknown vessels are ramming our ships. Ramming? Krex couldn't believe it. That's suicide. No, sir. They're not destroying themselves. They're using their armored hulls as weapons. Ship 17 reports that an enemy vessel rammed them, destroyed their engines, then backed off and continued fighting. Krex watched the tactical display in growing horror. His carefully organized fleet was being torn apart by 47 ships that fought like they had nothing to lose. Human vessels charged through his formations, ramming Vorthan ships, firing at point-blank range, and ignoring damage that should have crippled them. Sir, enemy vessels are launching boarding pods, reported his tactical officer. Boarding pods? In the middle of a space battle? Yes, sir. They're actually boarding our ships while the battle is still going on. Reports began flooding in from across the fleet. Human soldiers were fighting their way through Vorthan ships, and they were winning. The reports made no sense. Vorthan soldiers were enhanced with cybernetics and combat drugs. They were bred for war. But somehow, these human creatures were beating them in close combat. "Sir, we're losing ships faster than we can count," his tactical officer reported. "The unknown vessels are. They're not following any known tactical doctrine." "What do you mean?" "Sir, they're fighting like they don't care if they die. They're taking risks that no sane commander would take. And somehow, it's working." Krex watched as his fleet, which had never lost a battle, began to fall apart. Ships were exploding, fleeing, or going dark as human boarding parties took control. In less than an hour, he had lost over 200 vessels. "All ships, retreat," Krex ordered. "Fall back to the hyperspace point. Sir, the unknown vessels are pursuing. They're not letting us withdraw." Krex stared at the display as human ships chased down his fleeing vessels. This wasn't a battle anymore. This was a slaughter. And for the first time in his military career, Fleet Commander Krex of the Vorthan Empire was on the losing side. "Send a message to Imperial Command," he ordered. "Tell them we've encountered a new species. Tell them—" He paused, watching another of his ships explode. "Tell them we found something that fights like demons." The battle raged on, but Krex already knew how it would end. The humans had come to protect the Kalari, and they were going to win. The only question was how many Vorthan ships would survive to carry the warning back to the Empire that the age of Vorthan dominance was ending, and the age of human warfare had begun. Commander Krex floated in the medical bay of a human ship, his body covered in bandages and his mind struggling to understand what had happened. 6 hours ago, he had commanded 800 of the most powerful warships in the galaxy. Now only 17 damaged Vorthan vessels were limping back toward Imperial space, and he was a prisoner of war. The strangest part was that the humans had saved him. When his flagship was dying, human soldiers had boarded it, not to kill the crew, but to rescue them. It made no sense. In Vorthan military doctrine, you killed your enemies. You didn't save them from burning ships. "Commander Krex," said a voice from the doorway. "Are you feeling well enough to talk?" Krex turned his head to see Admiral Morrison standing in the entrance to the medical bay. The human looked exactly as dangerous up close as he had on the communication screen. But there was something else in his expression now. Not anger or hatred, but something that might have been pity. "You saved me," Krex said, his voice weak from the pain medications. "Why?" Morrison stepped into the room and gestured to a chair that had been sized for Vorthan physiology. "Because that's what civilized people do, Commander. We save lives when we can." Krex tried to sit up, but his injuries forced him to remain lying down. "You destroyed my fleet. You killed thousands of my soldiers." "Yes, I did," Morrison replied calmly. "And I'll do it again if your empire threatens innocent people. But I won't kill prisoners or wounded enemies. That's the difference between us and you." A human medic entered the room and checked the machines that were monitoring Krex's vital signs. The medic was gentle and professional, treating Krex with the same care they would give to their own wounded. It was another thing that made no sense to the Vorthan commander. "I don't understand you people," Krex said after the medic left. "You fight like demons, but you treat prisoners like guests. You destroy ships, but you save the crews. What kind of warriors are you?" Morrison leaned back in his chair. "We're not warriors, Commander. We're survivors. There's a difference." "Explain." "That to me." Morrison activated a small holographic display that showed the recent battle. Krex watched in fascination as the tactical breakdown revealed just how completely his fleet had been outmaneuvered and outfought. "Your people are warriors," Morrison began. "You train for battle. You study military history. You follow the rules of honorable combat. You fight to expand your empire and increase your power. The display showed Vorthan ships moving in perfect formation, following textbook tactics that had worked against dozens of other species. But we're not warriors, Morrison continued. We're predators. We don't fight to expand territory or gain honor. We fight to survive, and we fight to protect what matters to us. The display shifted to show human ships moving through the Vorthan formation. Their movements were chaotic and unpredictable, but deadly effective. You follow rules because rules work against civilized opponents, Morrison explained. We break rules because rules get you killed when you're fighting for your life. Krex watched the replay with growing understanding. Your ships ... they were designed for close combat. Everything we build is designed for close combat, Morrison confirmed. Our homeworld taught us that the universe is a dangerous place. We learned to expect the worst and prepare for it. The display showed human ships ramming Vorthan vessels, boarding enemy ships while under fire, and continuing to fight even when heavily damaged. This is madness, Krex whispered. No, Morrison said quietly. This is Earth. Commander, do you know what a Class 12 death world is? Krex shook his head. It's a planet where everything tries to kill you. The weather, the animals, the plants, the diseases, even the air can be toxic. Most species in the galaxy evolved on worlds that were safe and comfortable. They developed intelligence because they had time to think and plan. Morrison stood and walked to the viewport, where the remains of the Vorthan fleet could be seen drifting in space. We developed intelligence because we needed it to survive. For millions of years, every day was a fight against our own planet. We learned to work together because cooperation was the only way to live. We learned to be violent because everything around us was violent. He turned back to Krex. Your people conquered other species because you were stronger and better organized. But you've never fought a species that had to earn their survival every single day for their entire evolutionary history. Krex tried to process this information. You're saying your entire species is adapted for warfare? Not warfare, Morrison. Corrected survival. But when survival is threatened, we become very good at warfare very quickly. A human soldier entered the medical bay and saluted Morrison. Admiral, we've completed the rescue operations. All Vorthan survivors have been recovered and are receiving medical treatment. How many? Morrison asked. 43,000 survivors. From the 800 ships, the soldier reported. We're setting up temporary housing in cargo bays 7 through 12. Morrison nodded. Make sure they have everything they need. Food, medical care, communication access to contact their families. After the soldier left, Krex stared at Morrison in amazement. You're treating 43,000 prisoners like honored guests. We're treating 43,000 people like people, Morrison replied. Commander, your empire makes a mistake that's common among powerful civilizations. You think that being strong means being cruel. You think that winning means destroying everything that opposes you. Morrison sat back down and looked directly at Krex. But real strength isn't about how much damage you can do. It's about how much you can endure and still remain human. Real victory isn't about destroying your enemies. It's about making them understand that they were wrong to start the fight in the first place. And you think I understand that now? Krex asked. I think you're beginning to, Morrison replied. Commander, I want you to return to your empire with a message. The Kalari Federation is now under human protection. Any further attacks against them will be met with the full response of Earth's military forces. Krex laughed bitterly. You defeated one fleet with 47 ships. The Empire has thousands of fleets. They'll send everything they have to crush you. Morrison smiled, and that predator expression was back. Commander, you still don't understand what you're dealing with. This wasn't our entire fleet. This wasn't even a significant portion of our fleet. This was just the ships we happened to have in the area. What do you mean? I mean that Earth has 57 star systems under our control. Every single one of those systems is a fortress. Every single one is defended by fleets that make this one look small. Every single one is populated by humans who have been preparing for this kind of fight their entire lives. Morrison stood up. Again, your empire has been conquering civilizations for 1,000 years. But you've never conquered a death world. You've never fought a species that sees your 1,000-ship fleets and thinks that looks like a fair fight. Krex felt a chill run through his body. How many ships do you have? Enough, Morrison said simply. Commander, your people can choose how this ends. You can withdraw from Kalari space and leave them alone, or you can send more fleets for us to destroy. But understand this. We're not going to stop fighting until you stop attacking innocent people. Morrison walked toward the door, then paused. Oh, and Commander, when you report back to your superiors, make sure you tell them about our rescue operations. Make sure they understand that we saved every Vorthan life we could. Why? Krex asked. Because I want them to understand the choice they're making, Morrison replied. We gave your people mercy when we could have given you death. If they choose to continue this war, they won't get that mercy again. After Morrison left, Krex lay in the medical bay, thinking about everything he had seen. The humans had destroyed his fleet with casual efficiency, then spent hours rescuing his surviving crews. They had treated prisoners better than many species, treated their own citizens. But underneath all that civilized behavior, Krex had seen something that terrified him. He had seen what apex predators looked like when they decided to hunt. He had seen what happened when a species that had spent millions of years fighting for survival decided that someone needed to be stopped. The Vorthan Empire had made a terrible mistake. They had attacked the wrong species. And now they were going to learn why the rest of the galaxy stayed away from Deathworlders. Krex closed his eyes and tried to sleep, but he couldn't stop thinking about Morrison's words. The humans weren't warriors. They were something much more dangerous. They were survivors who had decided to protect someone. And there was nothing in the universe more dangerous than that. 6 months after the Battle of Threx Prime, Ambassador Kate Phillips stood before the Galactic Council once again. But this time, the Great Hall was different. Representatives who had once barely acknowledged her presence now watched her every move with careful attention. The humans were no longer the small, insignificant species from the galaxy's edge. The emergency session will come to order, announced Speaker Rex, his voice carrying a note of nervousness that hadn't been there before. We are here to discuss the recent developments regarding the Terran Commonwealth's military intervention in the Kalari-Vorthan conflict. Phillips took her place at the center of the hall, noting how several alien representatives had moved their seats farther away from her position. Fear was a powerful teacher, and the galaxy had learned quickly. The Terran Commonwealth's intervention has been successful, Speaker Rex continued, though his tone suggested he found the human methods disturbing. The Vorthan Empire has withdrawn completely from Kalari space and has requested a formal non-aggression pact with humanity. A murmur ran through the assembly. The Vorthan Empire had never retreated from a conquered system before. They had certainly never asked for peace treaties with species they considered inferior. However, Rex continued, the Council has concerns about the methods used by human forces and the implications for galactic stability. Phillips nodded respectfully. We understand the Council's concerns, Speaker Rex. The footage from our encounters with Vorthan forces has indeed raised questions about humanity's approach to warfare. Approach? Interrupted Ambassador Zenth, who had become humanity's strongest supporter since his people's rescue. Ambassador Phillips, your species saved my people from complete extinction. The Vorthans had never retreated from a military campaign before encountering humans. Which brings us to the central issue, said Speaker Rex. The Terran Commonwealth's military capabilities appear to exceed what your species reported during your application for Council membership by a significant margin. Philip smiled, and even though it was a friendly expression, several aliens shifted uncomfortably in their seats. With respect, Speaker, we reported our capabilities accurately. We simply reported our defensive capabilities. The application forms never asked about our offensive potential. She activated a holographic display that showed a detailed map of human space. What had appeared to be 57 barely habitable systems during humanity's council application now revealed itself as something entirely different. The Terran Commonwealth controls 57 star systems, Phillips explained. Each system was chosen specifically because it was classified as hostile to standard galactic life forms. Our people don't just live on Deathworlds. We actively seek out the most dangerous planets in the galaxy and turn them into military training grounds. The assembled representatives stared at the display in growing horror. Every human world was marked with threat levels that would have been considered uninhabitable by galactic standards. Planets with toxic atmospheres, deadly radiation, extreme gravity, and hostile native life forms. Your people live on these worlds. Voluntarily? Asked General Crix of the Zephyrian Alliance. We live on these worlds because they make us stronger, Phillips replied. Every human child grows up learning to survive in conditions that would kill most galactic citizens. We don't see dangerous environments as obstacles. We see them as training opportunities. She gestured to the tactical data from the Battle of Threx Prime. The Vorthan fleet was destroyed, not because we had better technology, but because we had better soldiers. Our crews have been preparing for this kind of fight their entire lives. And now? Asked Speaker Rex. What does humanity want from the galaxy? Phillips straightened her shoulders. The Commonwealth proposes a new relationship with the Galactic Council. We will provide military protection for any member species that requests it. In return, we ask only for fair trade agreements and continued scientific cooperation. The hall fell silent. The implications were staggering. Humanity was offering to become the galaxy's military protector, but they were asking for almost nothing in return. And if the Council refuses this proposal? Asked an alien representative from the back of the hall. Phillips shrugged, a gesture that somehow managed to convey both casual indifference and deadly certainty. Then we'll continue our current policy of protecting those who ask for our help and leaving everyone else alone. But the galaxy has seen what happens when civilized species prey upon the defenseless. She looked around the hall, making eye contact with as many representatives as possible. The age of conquest is over. The age of bullies taking what they want from peaceful peoples is finished. From now on, there will always be someone willing to stand up to aggressors. Ambassador Zenth rose from his seat. The Kalari Federation formally supports the human proposal. One by one, other ambassadors began to stand. Species that had lived in fear of stronger neighbors for centuries suddenly saw hope in an alliance with the strange predators from the Galactic Rim. The Altarian Republic supports the proposal, said Speaker Rex, though his voice carried reluctance. The Zephyrian Alliance agrees, added General Crix. Within minutes, nearly every representative in the hall was standing. The few who remained seated were from species that had built their power on intimidating weaker civilizations. They were smart enough to see that their time was ending. The proposal is adopted by overwhelming majority, announced Speaker Rex. The Terran Commonwealth is hereby recognized as the primary military protector of Galactic Council member species. Phillips nodded graciously. The Commonwealth accepts this responsibility. Our fleets will begin establishing protection protocols within the month. As the session ended and representatives began filing out of the hall, many stopped to speak with Phillips. Some offered trade agreements, Others requested specific protection arrangements, and a few simply wanted to express their gratitude for humanity's intervention. But Phillips noticed something else in their expressions. Respect mixed with fear. Gratitude tempered with caution. The galaxy had learned that humans were protectors, but they had also learned that humans were apex predators who should not be crossed. Ambassador Zenth was the last to approach her. Ambassador Phillips, I wanted to thank you personally for what your people did for mine. No thanks necessary, Phillips replied. We did what any decent species would do. No, Zenth said firmly. What you did was extraordinary. But I have. To ask, are you concerned about how the galaxy views humanity now? Phillips looked out through the Great Hall's viewport at the stars beyond. Somewhere out there, human fleets were taking up positions to protect worlds they had never seen, filled with people they had never met. Ambassador Zenth, do you know? What my people learned during our long evolution on Earth. What's that? We learned that sometimes being feared is the price you pay for protecting what you love. The galaxy may be afraid of us, but they'll never again have to be afraid of bullies. Like the Vorthans. Phillips gathered her papers and prepared to leave. The universe is a dangerous place, Ambassador. But from now on, the dangerous things will have to get through us first. As she walked out of the hall, Phillips reflected on how much had changed. In just 6 months, humanity had gone from being a minor species on the galactic fringe to being the most feared and respected military force in known space. The Vorthan Empire had learned their lesson and retreated to their core worlds, where they were busy trying to understand how 47 human ships had destroyed their most powerful fleet. Other aggressive species had quietly canceled their expansion plans and settled into peaceful development. And throughout the galaxy, peaceful species slept a little easier, knowing that somewhere in the darkness, the Deathworlders stood watch. Age of human guardianship had begun, and the stars themselves seemed to shine brighter, knowing that the strongest predators in the galaxy had chosen to protect rather than prey upon the innocent dot it was. Phillips thought, exactly the kind of galaxy that humanity had always dreamed of creating. A place where strength served justice, where the powerful protected the weak, and where the most dangerous species in existence dedicated itself to making sure that everyone else could live in peace. The humans had found their place in the cosmic order, and that place was standing between the innocent and those who would harm them.